How's that?
Oh, good.
Got that part done. All right. You know, we can't go anywhere nowadays without having some sort of electronic device with us. I'm no different than my grandchildren. And wouldn't you know it? There it goes. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to introduce myself a little bit, since I'm also a visitor. Okay. Only we've been visiting. This is our third Sunday, something like that. But anyway, we missed the first Sunday this month, but we've been attending here with this congregation of people for several weeks now. I think our first night was a Wednesday night, and Skip was teaching the book of Leviticus and everything. But I must say that Kathy and I have been, we're full-time RV people. We live in our RV, and we're staying down here at the Glacier Peak Campground. And just so happens that one night we were staying there was another RV just like ours pulled up beside us. And lo and behold, it was Wayne and Cindy Rogers who spoke here the following Sunday. So, but we have just really enjoyed being here. Everybody has been so welcoming to Kathy and I. And we appreciate that so much. It just means a whole lot to us. And it makes just coming here just so much easier. We have... As we've traveled, we've attended other congregations, and some of them, they'll hand you a bulletin on your way in, and you sit down, and no one will say a word to you. Well, that has not been the case here, and everybody has just, we've got to know quite a few of you quite well. This morning, I was asked to speak this past Thursday when we were having the community feed here. By Dave Nichols, and he really twisted my arm. Okay, but
Because he was supposed to be preaching today.
he was, he knew he was supposed to be speaking. But anyway, he asked me to speak, and I told Dave, I said, Dave, it's not my favorite thing to do, and I want to tell you why. When Wayne and Cindy were here, Wayne talked about the School of Preaching in Memphis, Tennessee, and he talked about how a lot of preachers they'll go into training, we'll get them trained, and then we send them out to the wolves, and a lot of them quit preaching. Well, I am one of those statistics. Okay. I went to a school of preaching. I attended Whites Ferry Road School of Biblical Studies in West Monroe, Louisiana. A lot of you may know where that is. You may know some of the people that attend there. The late Phil Robertson, who just passed away, was a member of the Whites Ferry Road Church. While I was attending that school, Bill Smith, who was the pulpit minister there, and also one of the instructors in the school, he was approached by Phil Robertson's sister, and she told him, she said, if you'll convert my brother, he'll convert thousands. Okay, and I know that Phil did touch the lives of a lot of people, that and the Duck Dynasty crew down there. But anyway, he was a man of great faith, and he really trusted in God. Today, as I've been here, Dave Nichols and I talked. You got to separate your Daves here, by the way. Dave Nichols and I were talking back there this past Thursday and even times before that, and we got to know each other. I can tell you some things about Dave, okay? I know that he was a physician. He was you mind me sharing? Okay. He was a physician, and he was an anesthesiologist. I know he had some of his schooling in Mexico. I think he went some residency programs in Oklahoma. Am I getting it right? He also practiced up in Rochester, New York, okay, right there on the side of the lake. Cold place, sort of like this right now. But he was also a teacher. And what amazed me about that was that he said he and Shirley were on their way to try to find a teaching job someplace, and I think Shirley told him, let's check out Oklahoma. And sure enough, they stopped and started inquiring, and he interviewed, and they hired him to teach in this little rural school. Okay. And while he was at that little rural school, not only was a teacher, he was the principal, he was the bus driver, and he was the teacher. I thought that was pretty amazing, to be honest with you. But you know, we sort of got to know each other. And I like inquiring about people and what you do and where you've been and what you've done and what you plan on doing. And it's just, it's fascinating to search out people's lives. Because everybody has their own story, you know. But you know, in the book of Psalms, the psalmist David, King David, he talks about Jehovah and how that Jehovah searches us out, okay. He knows us, okay. And you know, the word search in the Bible there sort of gives the implication of mining, okay. I'm not a miner, never been in a mine. But you know, there are mines here in the United States that you can actually go in. Where's the only diamond mine in the United States? Arkansas. It's called what?
I can't remember. Something diamonds, Crater of Diamonds.
Crater of Diamonds, okay. And you can actually go into the Crater of Diamonds and you can search for a diamond, okay. You pay your little entrance fee. But you go in there, and if you find a diamond, their motto is finders keepers, okay? If you find one, you can keep it. And there has, since the park opened, I read that there's been like some 35,000 diamonds found in that park. The biggest one being about 40 carats, okay? Big diamond, you know. But anyway, searching things out, okay? And God searches us out, okay? He says, Jehovah, thou hast searched me and known me. Well, Jehovah, how much do you know about me? Well, he knows all about you. When Jehovah looks down upon us this morning, when we got up out of our bed, he knows when we arise out of our bed. When we came into this building and we took a seat in this building, God is aware of us. He can feel the gravity that's pushing you down in your seat. He says, thou knowest my down sittings and mine uprisings. Thou understandest my thoughts afar off. But you know, here, God, now he's getting into my mind. He can feel the physical things about us, but now he gets into our mind and he knows our thoughts. God knows our thoughts even before we think them, okay? He is just that aware of us. He says, thou hast searched out my paths and my lying downs, and art acquainted with all of my ways. God looks down upon you as if you are the only person in this universe. He knows you that well. But you know, it's amazing to me that we have a God that has that ability, okay? These passages are talking about God's omniscience, his omnipotence, and his omnipresence, you know. And here he knows us quite well. He knows the motivation behind what we are doing. He says, for there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Jehovah, thou knowest it altogether. Before we can begin to verbalize things, it seems that God knows what we're going to be saying and the motivation behind them. You know, a lot of these things I don't know if they should scare us or if they should encourage us, okay? I guess it depends on where you are in your relationship with God, you know. He says, thou hast beset me behind and before. He says, and laid thy hand upon me. He said, he talks about God's knowledge. He says, your knowledge is too wonderful for me. Here David was, King David, a wise man, a knowledgeable man. And look how he looked upon how God looked upon him. He said, your knowledge is too wonderful for me. Have you ever been around an individual that is just super smart? Super smart. Kathy and I, while we were working with the church in Great Britain, we had a gentleman come over there. His name's Manning. And Manning is a smart man. And he is an astrophysicist. I don't know what an astrophysicist does, okay? I can tell you this, when he was there, we would ask Manning, we'd say, Manning, what do you do? What are you actually doing here? And he worked for the university there in Cardiff, Wales. He said, well, I was brought over here to help build models of stars in a computer. Well, I understand all of that. Not a bit, okay? Just shot right above our heads, you know. And to this day, I still don't understand what Manning Butterworth did, okay? But he was just one of these super, super smart individuals. Sometimes you see these, I worked at a school at one time for the mentally retarded and emotionally disturbed. And among these young people that were there was one that was, he had autism. He was an autistic savant. Well, Hal was just a super young man, and but he was very withdrawn. But you could tell him the year that you were born and the month, okay, and or tell him the day and the month, you know, and the year, and he'd say, he would tell you the day of the week, just that quick, that you were born on. Well, you know, a lot of these things, like people like that, we just don't understand. But you know, and that's the way it is with our thinking about God. He said, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. He said, it's high, I cannot attain into it. Scares me. It scares me or makes me feel good, or glad that I'm a part of God's family. And he says, where can we go? Where can we flee from God's presence? He says, if I ascend up into heaven, you're there. He says, if we go into the beds of Sheol, behold, thou art there. He says, if I take the wings of the morning, and here David is, and he's positioned in Jerusalem, and he's referring to these different directions, okay? If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go to the beds of Sheol, behold, thou art there. He says, if I go to the wings of the morning, that's going to the east from him. If I go to the sea, he's heading toward the Mediterranean, okay? He says, if I dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, west, he says, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. God is forever with us in our presence. We're not going to escape him. I don't know if you were like me. When I grew up, we were poor folks, you know. Born in Austin, Texas, and grew up in North Louisiana. But when I reached my teenage years, my mother and father had a tight rein on us, okay? And we would go out, we would maybe go out with some of the other boys or you know, some of the kids from church and what have you. And we knew better to misbehave. Because if we misbehaved when we were away from our house, before we got back to the house, my mom and dad would know about it. And there were repercussions, you know. But here's the way, it's the same with God, you know. He knows where we've been, where we're going. He goes on to say, and he talks about hiding from God. There's no place we can hide from God. He says, if surely the darkness shall overwhelm me, and the light about me shall be night. Even the darkness hideth not from thee. And you know, it's amazing to me that we see all of the things taking place in our country right now. You can take the riots in Los Angeles and Portland and Austin and all these other places, New York, and these people start acting, they're acting stupid, okay? There's no other way to put it. Their behavior is it's ungodly and it's just unacceptable. But when do they start all this nonsense? Well, they usually wait till it gets dark, okay? And then they start raising Cain. Well, the darkness is not going to hide us from God. He says, the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. And then, here comes another part. He starts talking about us being children, okay, and us being born, Have you ever considered the Virgin Mary? Okay. We know today through science and what have you that when the sperm and the egg come together and there's conception, there's a DNA that's a part of our lives. And we all know what DNA is, don't we? Most people? Deoxyribonucleic acid or something like that. Is that right, Dave? Yeah, okay. He nodded. But anyway, we got this DNA. Wow. When you know what DNA is? When those two things come together, the DNA in there decides who you are, okay, and what you're going to be. Decides the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, your stature, whether you're going to be a short person, a big person, a wide person, or a skinny person, okay? Everything that physically that you are going to experience has been established, And I think God put this in place. If the Virgin Mary, though, if she, when she conceived by the Holy Spirit, okay, I wonder if at that point, at conception, did Jesus know he was God? I don't know. Never will know. But some say yes, some say no. I seem to think that Jesus, he matured just like the rest of us. I think that Mary, she fed him, she changed his diapers if they wore diapers. She taught him to talk, to walk, okay, to eat, She provided for him. And then he got into his teenage years, his 12, when he got to be 12 years old. And I think Jesus really realized that he was the Messiah at a very young age, maybe 10, 11, 12 years old. And he began to do things that he was supposed to do, Remember when Jesus went to they went to Jerusalem, and Jesus, here Mary was, she had been entrusted with God's child, and they went to Jerusalem, and he was in the temple, and he stayed there 2 days teaching in the temple, and they had left, okay, and then they realized, that Jesus was not with them, and it finally dawned on Mary and Joseph that he was not around, and can you believe that? Here she is, entrusted with God's child, and she's lost him, okay. But they went back to the temple, and they found Jesus, and he was teaching in the temple, and he says, "Don't you know I must be about my Father's business?" He knew that he was the Messiah. And I'm sure that Mary may have had thought differently about all this, and she said, "I'll teach you about your Father's business, And she said, "Get to that house." But nonetheless, he was formed, okay. He says, in verse 13, he says, "Thou didst form mine inward parts, and didst cover me in my mother's womb." The word there that says formed by inward parts is like the word knitting. In fact, in the New International Version, it does use the word knit. We're knit together in our mother's womb. My wife is a knitter, and in the knitting circles, they have some different terms for things. They'll ask each other, "How many do you have on the needles? How many things do you have on the needles?" Or they'll use the word whip, W-I-P. You ever heard that word? If you're not a knitter, you probably don't. But anyway, the word whip means a work in progress. Here we are in our mother's wombs, and God is knitting us together. We're a work in progress. Can you imagine all the works in progress that God's overseeing at this time right now? All of the women who are bearing children, And God is actually knitting those beings together in their wombs. That's a lot to comprehend. He says, I will give thanks. David says, I will give thanks unto thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My frame was not hidden from thee when I was made in secret and then curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. You know, those thoughts took me to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, and verses 4 and 5. And it says, Now the word of Jehovah came to me, Jeremiah, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I have appointed thee a prophet unto the nation. Here Jeremiah attests to the fact that God is putting us together inside our mother's womb. He says, When I was made in secret and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth, he says, Thine eyes did see mine unformed substance, and in the book they were all written, before the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was none of them. God knows your tomorrows like you know your today. So grateful that he is looking down upon us, and he is so aware of us. And David goes on to say, and he says, how precious. These thoughts that you're having of me, God, he says, they really mean a lot to me. They're precious unto me, O God. How great is the sum of these thoughts of me? And he goes on to say that they're more than the sands of the sea. How grateful we should be that God looks down upon us and he's so aware of us, and he's having thoughts of us at all times. He says, if I should count them, they're more than number than the sands of the sea. When I awake, I'm still with thee. And then he goes on and he starts talking about, he says, surely thou wilt slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloodthirsty men, and they that speak against thee, for thine enemies take thy name in vain. Do not I hate them, O Jehovah, that hate thee? Am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with a perfect hatred. They are become mine enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. To know God is to know that God's not looked favorably down on sin. You know, that's something that's part of all of our lives, is that we're all sinners. But you know, isn't it good to be free? Isn't it good to be free? Free from this sin that a part of each and every one of our lives. But we're only free because of what God has done for us. God sent his son down here, born of a virgin. He died upon a cross. He took upon himself the flesh. He gave up the being on equality with God, a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, and he became a form of a servant. He walked upon this earth. He died upon the cross. He gave himself up willingly upon that cross. You know, if you look back upon the account of that and him dying upon the cross and the Virgin Mary, you know, there was Jesus' mother at the foot of the cross. But what did she do? She was silent. Mary was silent. Why was she silent? Well, I think Mary knew above everybody else that this person hanging on the cross, her son, who she bore, was the Son of God, and that what he was doing upon that cross was God's will. But Jesus died upon that cross. They took his body. They placed it in a tomb. 3 days later, Jesus came forth out of that tomb, and he ascended back to heaven, where he now sits on the right hand of God, and he's making intercession for each and every one of us. Someday, this Jesus, according to the book of Thessalonians, he's going to come back with the trump of God and with the shout of the archangels. He's going to come back, and he's going to redeem those that are his own. Those of us that have died and have preceded those that are still alive. We're going to rise up to meet God in the air, and so shall we ever be with God in the air. You know, it's great to know that we do have a great God, a God that's always present, all-powerful, all-knowing, and that He loves each and every one of us. Not only does He love each and every one of us, all of these wicked people that we see running around today, you know, God loves them too. All the people that are creating chaos throughout the world, God sent His Son to die for them as well. You know, we as His children, we need to continually be searching out those, no matter where they stand in life, whether they're a wicked person, a good person, a bad person, you know, a sweet person. We all need Jesus in our lives. And He has given us that great opportunity to be a part of bringing those that are lost to His side. In Great Britain, when you finish up a lesson over there, they do not offer an invitation song. But it's just understood over there that if you have any needs, you know, you can come forward, you can talk to the leaders of the congregation. If you have anything that you'd like to say to the congregation, you can do it publicly if you wanted. And the same thing holds true here today. You know, if you're here today and you need to respond to God in just any way, we're going to sing a song here in a moment, Jerry. And if you have a need to respond in any way, please do so as we stand and sing.